One of the most commonly known things in Apex Legends is that if one of your teammates goes down, you just made a big step towards losing that fight. And one thing that's often overlooked is how easy it is to get rendered an easy lick and have a team just calling out to swarm you. Now this can be somewhat easier to manage if you have teammates that are there and aware of what's going on, but otherwise, you probably just threw the game for your whole team, especially if you got caught out on your own. One of the most common ways I see my teammates die in this game is getting caught out in the open, as you probably hear me say a lot on stream. Shameless plug, by the way. Now, I've made a whole video before on push and pull flow states and identifying the right times to make moves in a fight. How things like big damage, shield cracks, the enemy being flesh, and knocks are some of the most common ways that you can figure out when to make a move forward. That being said, all of these are indicators to the enemy that they should move in on you as well. Oh, man. Are you fucking stupid or something? So getting caught in a situation where you get a 21 gun salute and the enemy now knows you're cracked is really just seconds before disaster when it comes to Apex Legends.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Bring that ass here, boy.
This occurrence, the most common thing for a team to go through before they end up getting ran down on, is something that I like to call getting put into. Now, to put it simply, push position is a state in which you're a danger to your team because you've now become a beacon to the enemy team that they can push and kill you. Now, one thing I often see people say about this game is that the TTK, or time to kill, is really high, and I honestly don't think that's the case. Here, let me show you. People like to say that Apex has a really high time to kill, but I'm not too sure about that.
First, second, one of the two. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I guess it was. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, my God.
And this can often be the case for someone in a one-on-one. So imagine getting caught in a bad position and having more than one gun firing on you. It can get pretty chaotic pretty fast. But close range fights aren't always what you have to worry about with this, as there are a lot of guns that can leave you in push position from mid to long range with just one or a few shots. And with the new changes to how Apex Legends is played with the perk system and the shield changes in Season 20, the average shield level across the board has decreased a lot, meaning every player has just become that much easier to kill in the end. When you think about it, your time on Apex, especially now, is usually spent mainly on a white or blue shield. A white shield has 50 health. A blue shield has 75 health. Purple shield has 100, but it's a lot less common for you to even get to that point nowadays. Now we're going to be looking in the context of body shots, as those are the easiest to hit. The Sentinel does 70 damage. The longbow does 55, but I shot him in the arm, so it did 44. Just go with it. The 30-30 does 45. The Nemesis does 64 if you hit a full burst. Are you starting to get the picture? And these are excluding the SMG burst weapons that could get you to 30% health quicker than you could even react. Like the R9 used to be able to do before they nerfed it 1,000 times and made it pointless to use. Yay, respawn. But this all comes even more into perspective when you look at these charts and see how few shots it takes to kill, let alone simply cracking a shield. One thing that the nature of Apex leads people to believe is that flesh equals push. And while this is often the best time to move forward, this is what you want to avoid being on the receiving end of. And yeah, I know,
avoiding getting hit increases survivability.
It sounds obvious, but there are things that go into it that you may not have even considered. There are a few things that you could put more thought into that help you avoid being put in the push position in the first place. So first, let's talk about, which basically means looking out from cover. This is the obvious part. What isn't as obvious though is knowing how much of your body you're allowing to stick out when you peek. Like for instance, when you go to peek your head up and you're trying to see where the enemy is and they're able to shoot just the top smallest part of your forehead, or the fact that if you look down it shows less of your head. But I digress. Now, one thing you want to be aware of is just how much of your body that you're allowing to stick out when you're trying to peek around the corner and get sight on an enemy. Now the characters all hold the guns on the right side of their body, so if you're peeking around the right side of an object, you're gonna have a lot less of your body sticking out than you will if you're peeking around the left corner. And while there's never really a time that I would suggest you stand still peeking out from behind a piece of cover, or really ever stand still in general, you still want to be aware of just how much of your body sticks out and is able to be shot when you're doing this. Generally speaking, if the barrel of your gun is poking from around the corner, you can see a majority of the area that you're looking at, while reducing and possibly eliminating the ability for the enemy to hit you because most of your body isn't sticking out from behind cover. The goal to winning these fights is to put your enemy in the push position and avoid getting put there yourself. And the way to do that is to avoid getting hit as often as possible. And while you're probably going,
Obviously, why am I still watching this video?
hold up, because one thing you might not really think about is the fact that when you're taking these types of cover and when you're making yourself a harder target to hit, you're making it a lot more likely for the chance that the only thing that you can get hit in is your head. And when you get headshotted, that puts you in push position a lot easier. So that's another one of them you can mark down on the list of things you might not really think about too often when you play the game, but you definitely should keep in mind because they can affect how often you end up losing these fights. Most guns on this game do enough damage where if you get hit by a shot or a couple shots, you have to back up a little bit and hit a shield cell and temporarily take yourself out of the fight. Now imagine this happens to you and then your teammate and then your other teammate, and they all just get to walk up for free because nobody is watching the open field. And this can be a great segue into our next section because honestly, if you're not doing this, teams are just going to treat you like they smell blood and they're a pack of hungry hyenas and you're just going to keep getting ran down on. So in these instances, you and your teammates need to focus on being able to show more. Now in a nutshell, or in explain like I'm five type format, showing presence a lot of the time just boils down to being in a position where you're showing the enemy team that you can respond to them attacking as well as attack them first. And before I go into the whole deep dive breakdown analysis of showing presence, let me just give you a little gist. So there's a lot of times in this game where, for instance, I may not use my Watson fences because there's teams in the area or there's teams that have to cross through an area, and we're gonna end up being in the best position by getting the drop on them and playing it safe and ratting, for lack of a better term, until they get close to us. The thing about showing presence is you want to use it as a deterrent, as a way to show teams in the area and enemy teams that may be pushing through your area that that's not necessarily the safe way to do it. But you want to do it smart, i.e. if you have the opportunity to do a rat play and catch a team off guard, then that makes a lot more sense than shooting them all early and letting them scurry back to cover, doesn't it? Now with the nature of the game and how it's a battle royale on a big map with a bunch of other teams that are probably going to be somewhere in the area, you don't always want to be the team that's just shooting your gun all willy-nilly and making it known that you're in the area and other teams can come fight you. But with that being said, when you're engaged in a gunfight or when you're in trench warfare or just duking it out one-on-one, or I guess 3-on-3, 2v3, you know what I'm saying. You don't want the enemy team to ever think they just have the drop on you and they could just safely cross through the open and get up close to you in 0.6, 0.4, tap strafe, whatever type of tools they got in their arsenal that they're going to use to send you back to the lobby. That's the type of situation you want to avoid being put in. Now the main thing with showing presence, you want to have control of an area and basically be the overseer of a certain area that you disallow your enemy team from being able to cross into. And with the nature of this game and abilities and items and things like that, holding certain positions and not being pushed from certain positions is a lot easier because you don't always have to use your eyes and ears to watch every angle. Like I said earlier, considering this is a battle royale game, you're probably going to draw the attention of other teams. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position where you're so focused on showing presence and being oppressive to an enemy team that other teams in the area have the opportunity to sneak up on you. Because, you know, it's a constant complaint, but it's not like the legends in this game make footstep audio or anything like that. Showing presence is typically a thing that matters more in the poking stage and the stage where you're trying to get off those early shots and crack shields to see who can move up. But at the same time, no matter what the occasion is, you want to make sure that you're focusing on either offense and putting in damage for the enemies to back up and you being able to move up and get closer, or defense and making sure that the enemies don't have just free reign and free ability to cross through open spaces and get close to you and throw grenades, use abilities. And I'm sure you've noticed, there's a few abilities in this game where you'll probably find a character wobbling around in the middle of a wide open area trying to angle it and hit you, Maggie drill, fuse Q, things like that. These are the opportunities where you need to be on the offensive and prevent the enemy team from being able to do that in the first place, because a fuse Q, a Maggie drill, bang smoke, things like that are extremely suppressive. And one thing you want to avoid doing is getting suppressed to the point where you can't help your teammates, or even worse, being isolated and caught out in a point where your teammates can't help you and now you got a squad of roaches on your head and there's just not much you could do to get out of that situation. One thing about showing presence, it's not going to work too well if you don't have the awareness to realize when you're in a position where you can easily be swung on and caught out and put your teammates in a worse position because now they have to regroup and try to help you. Now, what I like to call showing presence basically boils down to holding an area and poking at an enemy team to keep them pinned down, or from pushing towards your team. You can think of showing presence and coexisting or cohabitating a space as opposite ways to approach a fight. Now, the latter can get more dread-inducing, as you're basically holding a small part of a POI down until you either get pushed by a team or you're able to third-party a fight that breaks out between the other teams. One of the hardest parts about coexisting can be patience and timing, as Apex is the type of game where people can get antsy and anxious very fast. And I'm one of those people, I can't lie. There's way too much to do and way too much going on in Apex for me to ever be comfortable just sitting around waiting for my teammates to decide between a grenade or another 60 light ammo in their inventory. But that doesn't mean that you should be spending the time you're cohabitating, twiddling your thumbs, and staring at your teammates' skins. The point of cohabitation is to prepare yourself for whichever comes first, either your team being pushed and y'all being put on defense, or having to go on the offensive to clear out the area around you after a fight. Showing presence in a nutshell can be boiled down to some basic understandings like holding and watching angles that you can be poked from, keeping enemies from having free range of movement by constant pressure with shooting, abilities, grenades, etc, etc. Listening for the slight, rare chances that you actually do hear audio in this game. Taking note of where your teammates are and where you may be able to play backup turret in order to turn a 1v1 into a 2v down, among a myriad of other things. Basically, there needs to be a concerted effort from your team to make sure that you're holding space and denying that space from being encroached on. Think of it like the anti-sea bear circle from SpongeBob. Now, a big part of you showing presence is making it known where you are in an area and that you're not to be messed with. But this being a battle royale, that can sometimes put you in a situation where you're the center of attention for multiple teams. This can especially be the case depending on positioning and how much noise your team is making. And one of the biggest things that goes into showing and holding presence is you being aware of the areas that enemies will most likely try to challenge you from. Now, one of the easiest ways to die in this game is to get ran down on by a team of ninjas, and I don't really have to tell y'all about audio, right? Unfortunately, especially if there's any type of action going on near you, you're probably going to have to do more scouting and scanning with your eyes than your ears, unless you have traps or a bloodhound scan or a crypto drone. And that brings us to our next section, because staying alive is going to be nearly impossible if you're not constantly working on your... Now, awareness in this game is a pretty general topic, and if you want to get more of a total deep dive into how to use awareness effectively, check out my game sense guide. But basically, I bet money the main reason you're dying in this game is because you're simply just not paying attention, or at least not paying enough. You see, whether you're playing ranked or pubs, an encounter with another team will always mean one thing: them either trying to go around you or kill you. Now, the first one isn't that bad of a situation. You may be able to win the fight and catch them off guard just because of their unwillingness to fight you. And this is the team that you want to avoid being. But if they intend to kill you, you need to realize that even if it's just a 3v3 now, there's always the possibility of another team coming in to ruin the fun. Awareness of the surrounding environment as well as your teammates' movements are key. And I know watching solo no fillers and all is fun, but unless you're actively doing it, you're always going to end up in a better position by supporting your teammates. And you don't have to constantly throw your whole game to try to res them and end up dying doing it. I know that image popped up in a few of y'all's heads, but that's not what I'm talking about. Me personally, I tend to try to play off my randoms more often than not. As I've said before, supporting your teammate in a 1v1 and then moving to engage the enemy when backup comes for them is a good way to quickly turn the fight in your favor. It's something I call the revolving door strategy. Teammate 1 fights enemy 1. Enemy 1 dies with your teammate at low health. Teammate 1 backs up the hill. You move up and or reposition to fight enemy 2. Enemy 2 dies and you don't have that much health. By this time, teammate 1 has done a little bit of healing. Now your team is still alive with health to fight enemy 3. Doesn't this seem like an easier, more winnable, and more achievable fight strategy than everyone just running around solo like chickens with their heads cut off? I actually got a comment in stream recently about how I often stick with my teammates even if they do dumb decisions, and what I just explained largely goes into it. Being aware of your teammates and what they have going on will always leave you in a better position to respond to the stimuli of a fight. Teammates' health drop rapidly, they probably got caught out in a bad position and shot at by more than one person. Teammate going to push a doorway, you can swing around another angle to move in at the same time as you can see their silhouette through walls. Teammate healing, just got respawned, or is actively rezzing, regroup with your team and possibly provide cover instead of trying to 1v3 the whole team. Teammate got a knock, the enemy team will likely be rushing to that spot to support their down teammate. Find a position where you can catch them by surprise or sneak up behind them and spring a trap. You see where I'm going with this awareness thing? Like this part for instance, you see how my teammates' position and drawing attention allowed me to swoop in and clean up the fight while still preventing them from dying? This is the type of thing I mean when I say effectively supporting your teammates. Being Kobe in the clutch and the last one alive feels great and all, but winning a fight without having a full reset and heal and reshield is 1,000 times better, and it'll leave you in 1,000 times better position to end up winning the game in the end. Yeah, so my fault, y'all. I know I ain't been on here in a couple months, really dropping videos consistently and all of that. I've been having a lot going on, and I haven't. My interest in Apex is kind of waned at a certain point. I was pretty much ready to just chalk this shit. But as you can see, I'm back. So new videos, new streams, all of that type of shit soon. I should be back to streaming throughout the days and the week and not just one day a week like I've been doing recently. Job constraints aren't necessarily an issue anymore, so now it just comes down to me actually gaining my motivation and passion to actually continue playing the game again, which it's I don't know. Hopefully it'll be back. With that being said, and I know I've been talking about this for months, and I was supposed to do it months ago or all of that. I never really found the time to do it, but I plan to actually start watch partying the ALGS soon. So if you like ALGS and like my insights on the game, you'll be able to see both of those in conjunction in one space when I'm watching people play the game that are 1,000 times better than me. So yeah, take care, y'all. Hope to see y'all in another video or stream, something like that.